the organizer of Crypto Hub Malta. We are a blockchain native community in Malta that is trying to share knowledge about blockchain technology in a neutral way to welcome people into the space. And I'm also an environmentalist, and many people think that these things are contradictions. I believe there is a lot of confusion about blockchain technology. Amongst other environmentalists, they always think, or this is the normal association that people from the environmental space they have, that blockchain technology is bad because Bitcoin utilizes a lot of electricity. And I'm not going to deny that, but I'm saying there are many other opportunities that are provided by blockchain technology. The tokenization of on-chain carbon credits is one example. And I think it's the biggest irony and misconception that people condemn blockchain technology as a dirty technology, while really there are many new ways of coordinating efforts. Today we talk about refi, and refi is an abbreviation for regenerative finance. Some people like me, we call ourselves regents. This is a word of play, or it is similar to degens. Degens are people that are in DeFi. They are focused on decentralized finance, and refi is a field that is in the blockchain space that brings the fundamental principles of sustainability, or attempts to do this, into blockchain and DeFi. So instead of only focusing on the financial aspects of blockchain technology here, there is a holistic approach that focuses on nature conservation, about many different environmental use cases that are not fully explored on the blockchain at all at this point, but this is what we are going to talk about. We have Laurent and Janina here, who are now going to introduce themselves and are going to share their own perspectives on this. And then we take it as a fireside chat. I'm very excited about it.
I'm excited too. I invite Janina to start.
Oh, thank you a lot. Thank you a lot for having me on this fireside chat. I have to admit that my main profession is lawyering. I was born and grew up in Kazakhstan, and during the past 15 years, I've been living and working mainly in Europe. I'm a Swiss lawyer, Swiss qualified, and for the past 80 years, I've been living and working both in Switzerland and Liechtenstein. And since 2017, we've advised dozens, if not hundreds, of various very interesting crypto, fintech, blockchain-related projects. And my personal passion is impact investing in general. And for the past couple of years, we've supported a number of projects related to a tokenization of both emission allowances on compliance markets and carbon credits on voluntary markets. And we have seen really interesting development of, let's say, use cases of blockchain technology, both for carbon credits, and we're going to dive deeper into this topic later on, and also some other cases, both for NGOs, for traceability of funds, for example, and also some other cases which refer to quality of water, for example.
I'm glad to. I will introduce quickly myself. Laurent, I'm the initiator of Web3 Stronger Together. It's a Web3 ecosystem initiative, and we organize this first summit. I'm also Tron DAO advisor. I advise a few projects in Web3. Serial entrepreneur since now 28 years. I have been lucky enough to see different evolution, having several business and the different evolution of the web. I'm also fascinated by permaculture, trees. I have created a few years ago a urban farm in Tangier. It was a kind of permaculture lab. And I work on on essay since few years to try to define a new way of doing business. I call it perma business resilience, and I started to think and try to define and work on it since 2015. The moment I discovered for the first time the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper, I have been really captivated by a simple concept, peer-to-peer, in the core concept of everything inside, outside, around. And peer-to-peer, it's 1 = 1, but not only 1 human equal 1 human. It's also considering that we have to consider as much our ecosystem as much as we consider ourselves. I mean, we can't expect to have constantly indecent growth and without taking care of the place where we all live and do things. It's a reality. So the nature, it's as important as us, no more, no less. It's also 1 = 1. So I'm really glad to jump in the topic with you guys.
That sounds really great, Laurent. Maybe before we jump too deep into tokenization of carbon credits and a detailed use case, would you like to share a little bit of your insight, Laurent, with your experience of many years in the sustainability space? Because you must know that when you talk to someone who did not read the Bitcoin white paper or is not so familiar with blockchain technology, but is a genuine environmentalist, what would you tell those people about blockchain and refi in general?
You know, it's all about the paradigm, the context in which you evaluate something. Not only Bitcoin, it's the same. Because if these people tell me that the actual carbon credit system is contributing to save the planet, I will say thanks for the joke. You know, when you die, you know that it's absolutely not accurate. It's totally fake, but there is a consensus. This saved the planet. The same for the renewable energy certificate. We do something, we have a formula to determine that it has this value and do it, and yes, okay. I think it's something I don't deny. I'm a bit sarcastic. I don't deny, but I think it's one more time. Maybe today it can be a problem, but it's a part of the solution we need tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And it can be both in the same time. Then the real question is how we deal and how maybe, you know, I'm in love with a simple approach. I don't remember the name of, I have often a problem with the name, sorry, but you will find it. Cradle to cradle approach in the problem is the solution. You know, today we say that we have to ban all non-electric vehicle, okay, because it's source of pollution and so on. No, and we substitute a long-term problem by a short-term solution, okay? With in fact, the cradle-to-cradle approach is saying, no, let's create the car that will depolluate and maybe produce also some electricity in the same time. You know, this is the challenge, and this is a long-term solution. Yes. So one more time, it's just the way we consider things. Sure, it can be considered as a problem. It consumes a lot of energy, but in my opinion, it's part of a needed solution in the long run. So there is no, and it's also considering just partially what is Bitcoin and how which electricity you use Bitcoin more and more. It's more than green energy. It's a lost energy that help to produce, and it's a new source of income for energy producer. That help also some countries to develop their network and so on, their economy. So there is no unique way to answer to this topic. It's absolutely needed to deliver an alternative to experiment something else. If someone, and I will close that, tell me, look outside and tell me, Laurent, everything is okay, I will say it's the best short joke I have ever had. You know, have a look outside everywhere. It's chaotic.
Laurent, I feel you. I feel the same way. I've been an environmentalist for many years. I'm going to throw out a mantra from the sustainability space that you are probably familiar with. It says, think global, but act local. What do you think about this when you think about regenerative finance? Think global, but act local. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, I think it is, when we talk about usage of blockchain technology and about our life in general, we have different opportunities. We can consume less, we can consume regional products, we can use green energy, and we can, of course, compensate that either with emission allowances or with carbon credits. And I believe, of course, each country and each market, they have their own strategy and communities inside all of the, let's say, small villages in Switzerland. They have their own measures how they do it. Of course, the Europe is more like an example of we have all of the trash that we recycle, but I have seen also recently a lot of examples for compensation with carbon credits, with, let's say, all of the major consumer goods providers, like Zalando and a lot of others, where you can, if you purchase something, where you can compensate your CO2 footprint using carbon credits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds like something that Laurent mentioned earlier, because if a company like Zalando is compensating with on-chain carbon credits, they are operating in Europe locally. I know they are international, but they can interact with the blockchain and have some advantages there for their sustainability strategy. What do you think about that, Laurent? Does it make sense, or does it connect to what you said earlier?
Yeah, I would say it's a first step, but it's for me it's a partial answer. I mean, I keep in mind that this regenerative finance using Web3 to contribute to restore sustainable climate must also consider restoring the recognition of each individual people. You know, for me, it's not just being focused on the planet. We can't dissociate, because if we can't consider the people at the moment, they will reproduce the same chaotic things that cause the same effect, and it's a lost game. You know, it's also engaging each one, finding a sense to have a different relation, not only with others, but also with around the planet. You know. you can do whatever you want. If people continue to put trash along the roads, it's again in the sea. It's again and again and again. You know,
Yes.
so it's all about implementing solution technically, but also pragmatically. And why not? You know, we know that there is a huge problem of deforestation, let's say, in several countries in the world, and in Africa. Why? Because they used wood to cook and so on and so on. So and because they don't have enough money to buy the gas, that the price has increased radically, and so on. What if we don't help them to earn the money to be able to don't need the wood, and planting trees?
Go ahead,
You know,
Julia.
with a proof on the blockchain, and maybe she could get a part of the carbon credits because she's producer of carbon credits, you know, and this could be a solution.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is already being done, Laurent. I can answer. This is already being done by a lot of projects. So what's the way? I mean, I'll do just a quick introduction about the carbon credit markets, right? If you wouldn't mind, in the way of how carbon credit appears on the blockchain in general. I'm happy that we are at this stage of the society where, let's say, first of all, the construction for emission allowances was built, and now for the voluntary carbon market. That's let's say it is becoming common. That once you have a CO2 footprint both for corporations and physical persons, that it is just normal to compensate it. And it is compensated by way of reforestation in different regions, in different countries and different regions. If you were at the North Circle conference in Zurich, there were like hundreds of so-called project developers. These are people from the countries where they grow trees, but they don't do it for free. First of all, the communities, they get paid for growing trees, and secondly, they get part of the carbon credits for doing so. This is like a standard among a lot of projects which support reforestation.
It's great to hear that. Thank you for sharing.
On the one hand, these are all the project developers which do it on site. On the other hand, we have the technology providers. We have at least 2 companies which provide standards for issuing carbon credits, Vera and Gold Standard, which confirm in their registry that so many tons of CO2 can be sequestered. Of course, it is not. I mean, it is not that easy as I may present it, because there are a lot of technologies which monitors that the trees are there, that the CO2 is really being sequestered, and it is being sequestered in the amount it is supposed to be, in the amount for which the carbon credits were issued. It is not that easy. It is also a lot of greenwashing in this area.
Yeah.
Which promise that they grow trees and then they just don't, or they don't do it in the sustainable way, so that the communities are there, that they are paid, that the trees are maintained, that the community also get part of the carbon credits to finance them further. And then only when you have these verified carbon credits, the so-called sport carbon, it can be transferred on a blockchain and sold. But there is also an issue that everyone wants to have spot carbon, while for growing the trees for the future, you need many years before you can get the carbon credits. And what I have seen in the last year is so-called forward carbon, when you sell approximate number of carbon credits which can be issued and then registered with Vera or Gold Standard in the future. But then you also have the issue that you have to take care that the communities on site really grow those trees and maintain them in a good standard, so that those project developers, and specifically those who purchase the forward carbon, that they really get those carbon credits.
Yes, and by communities, you actually mean developers, but it can also be individuals that are pooling into a project. Do you think there is a new potential if you do this in a decentralized way? Again, for the same mantra from sustainability, think global, but act local, enabled by blockchain. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah. Certainly this can be, I have seen mainly, of course, companies which find those projects on site and have agreements with local people who grow the trees, basically. But these can be actually DAOs, which have several persons on the board, which runs, let's say, the executive decisions, and then people who finance it and get carbon credits in the future. This is also an opportunity. Why not?
Discussing with several projects trying to deliver their contribution in this domain. The legal aspect is still a real mess. Technically, it's easy, you know, but in terms of regulation, it's really complicated. And when you want to not only and in my opinion, this is a part of the solution we should bring. It's not enough to be satisfied by the current carbon credits and renewable energy certificate. It's absolutely not accurate. And if it's just to be compliant to something that has no utility, it's useless, guys. We'll just create kind of illusion, crossing our finger and so on. So here, some protocol using, you know, there is few projects coming, by the way, that will bring peace to solve this or solve partially this problem. For example, the way we evaluate the green energy produced, you know, by a solar panel that generates REC, renewable energy certificate. A project, blockchain project, is coming, the on-chain, with a device that will be plugged on the solar panel, connected to the blockchain, and we will, with the principle of IoT, collect some data that will be offer a way to deliver a really accurate renewable energy certificate, you know, with no manipulation, no possible corruption, because in some countries we know that it's a real problem.
Let's maybe address the elephant in the room with the corruption, the verifiability, and especially the origin of, in this case, carbon credits. Janina, would you like to say something about this scandal that hit KlimaDAO, if you're familiar with it, or just address this problematic of verifying something and then putting it on the chain, because they're garbage in, garbage out? How can we really rely on the data that is available?
Well, this is not really easy. To be honest, I'm going to look into this scandal of KlimaDAO, but I believe, first of all, there is no really clear standards for project developers, how they do it, how they support the community. These are some voluntary standards which appear in the projects, how they do it the proper way. Secondly, also there are gold standards. These are not any state authorities. These are again standards organizations based on voluntary basis again. And I have heard it from the project developer and from, let's say, technical providers of tokenization services for those projects. It is extremely difficult. It is an emerging market. And I think this is not the first and not the last scandal we're going to deal with. Because on the emerging market, the standards are being built while the market is being developed, you know.
Just last week, Gold Standard announced that they finished a public hearing on getting into blockchain technology. But if they cannot have a good reputation about this product or about this approach, nothing will be solved. We are still faced with the same issue. And that is really what I would like to hear from both of you, because you both have an individual background in this. How can this be done in a good way, in a beneficial way for everyone?
Well, I believe, since I'm a lawyer, I believe that those organizations and all of the people acting on the market, that they should discuss some kind of voluntary standards, at least, of how those projects are supported on site and how those carbon credits should be verified exactly, especially the forward carbon. I believe these are some voluntary standards which community should come up with, and this is what normally happens. And of course, it is a way to go before it is going to be regulated by any states, because this is such a small market, not large enough to be regulated. When we talked about it, for example, with FML Liechtenstein, talking about in general legal issues, tokenized carbon credits, at least from European perspective on a long-term market, are actually not securities for sure, and more or less pretty much nothing being tokenized, really honestly, because from the current legal perspective, at least in Europe. And as I said, well, for now it is unregulated. You just need to comply with KYC and AML and all of the legislation for tokenization, which is there in Europe. But the rest of it is all, fortunately or unfortunately, based on voluntary standards of the Gold Standard and Vera. And this is all coming. And I think the earlier the community would come up with standards to comply with, the better it would be.
Yes, but Laurent was talking about a project called REC, if I understood this correctly. So Laurent, how are they going to address this issue? Sorry, what was it called?
It's not the project. It's a Dion chain, which is coming soon, and they develop solar energy solution on the blockchain, dedicated blockchain, with a device that will offer a really accurate way to deliver the REC, renewable energy certificate. It's you have an equivalent of carbon credit. What I wanted to say, it's interesting to have this discussion with you, because it's in the continuation of the previous chat. It was about Web3 and mass adoption, and at the end, we quickly all admit and started to discuss around this idea that it's not only about technology, regulation, and so on. It's the purpose. Why do we do this, and having a long-term vision? And we were talking also being proactive. I said that, regulation, it's by design and by default. There is no improvement. It's not enough. And if we wait for regulators to find the best way to do things in the best way, as fast as possible, I think we will wait a bit. Okay, it's up to us to try to define new standard new objectives, new goals. But we should include in a business by design and by default, and not only profitability, growth, and so on.
Yes, but Janina, surely you disagree here because you are mostly concerned about legal enforceability of these standards and projects. If one of your clients is asking you how to get into the voluntary carbon market with tokenized carbon credits, number one issue for them before they use any commitment, before they commit to it, will be the standards are here, the technical standards. How can I use this? Or what do you think about this?
Well, just as I said, at least in the European legal framework, also in Switzerland, the carbon credits and voluntary markets are not regulated, which is both good and bad news. because on the one hand, it is a new emerging market, which means law is always behind the economic and technological development. It's always like that. It's not because the regulators don't want it, but they just need to watch and see how market is developing, and that was the result of our talk with FMA. They said that once maybe the voluntary market will be also regulated, but before any regulation is there, I would when I see like good projects developed by project developer in good phase, when people really are committed to what they do. Of course, they are interested not only at getting those carbon credits fast and selling them, and not taking care whether the trees really grow and will continue to be grown by the community.
Yes.
So I think, and I have seen already examples for that there are community-driven projects which already work on those standards for voluntary carbon credits. And this is what will be used by the community before it gets regulated by any of the state authorities in any of the states.
Maybe I can give an example of an existing project within the European Union. It's called Sun Contract. It is based in Slovenia, and they have 5,000 existing solar home systems or PV systems. Now, what they are doing, what they launched many years ago, 5 years ago, is a peer-to-peer electricity market. It works in a way that individual homeowners or owners of these systems are connected by the inverter of the solar system. It is the piece that feeds in the electricity from the solar system to the electricity grid that is connected with an API to a smart contract. So they can choose to be paid in their native token. The issue here is, if I am a homeowner, if I own a system like that, and there is no legal enforceability of the token that is allegedly backed, or it is supposedly backed by kilowatt hour output of these systems, I face a vacuum. Now, luckily for them, they are heavily regulated, which is great because it protects everyone, both the company, but also the prosumers. A prosumer is a consumer that produces more than they consume. But if it wouldn't be for that legal security within the country of Slovenia, it is very difficult. And that is a challenge that they're facing now, because they are thinking about expanding, obviously, to other European member state countries. But it's not that easy because the laws are not there just yet.
That's so true. I mean, and also even within the framework of MiCA, MiCA provides mainly the legal framework, the regulatory framework for financial markets. So all of the VASPs that we know, all of the crypto exchanges, and also those DLT trading pilot regime for platforms, which are going to provide secondary markets, which is good for security tokens. But what is not covered is civil law. And this is a link between the person, the token, and the asset behind the token. And these are civil law bases, which are going to be regulated still on a national level. And this is, I think, this is the only piece of law which I have seen so far in the entire world is the Liechtenstein Blockchain Act, which has this link between person. There is an assumption that person holding private keys can dispose over a token. There is no property rights over a token because it is information. But the disposal rights are with the person who holds the private keys. And there is also an assumption that if you dispose over the token, that you dispose over the right behind the token, which is really, really important for tokenization of pretty much everything. And though there are no civil law rules in legislations of other countries, of course it is then up to the judge if it comes to the worst case scenario. I believe that the judge would decide pretty much the same how it is written, for example, in the Blockchain Act. But of course, it is still a so-called legal uncertainty. When you don't have in the continental law system, you have to have a law where it is specifically written what happens with the token and with the asset behind the token. But still, and then it is up to the judge. In the absence of specific laws, it is up to the judge how they will decide. But following the general logic, which is in every legal system more or less the same, I would assume that the judge would still say if you have the private keys, then it's your token and it's your asset behind the token. But you're right, there is quite a high level of uncertainty in this regard.
No, I don't want to be right. Let's dream a little bit here. We are on a fireside chat and we have like a perfect world now, an utopian world. We are going to change the world with refi. How would it look like?
Oh, okay. I'm more kind of a pragmatic person. And I think that all of the changes take quite a lot of time. And though voluntary carbon markets are not the only solution, like there are a lot of other interesting use cases for, let's say, control of air and water where blockchain can be used, which are also considered to be part of refi. I also truly believe in voluntary markets and applying good standards by the community on a voluntary carbon market. And I think, to me, this is part of the solution, honestly. If those great projects are being developed and all of the reforestation projects are really sustainably developed in those regions, and we pay for them while purchasing carbon credits, this is already one of the good solutions, under the assumption of course that also it runs under the good standards and the quality of carbon credits is being controlled the same as the quality of the projects developed on site.
Okay, well, we are still dreaming. I think we lost Laurent, but imagine Laurent would have to go to his community, all the work that he did for the past many years, and he would have to convince them. They are all genuine actors in good faith. And Laurent has to convince them now to bring what they have into the refi space. But they tell him, if it cannot be legally enforced, I run a risk. I cannot convince my investors. I cannot convince the people that are backing me. What would be the missing piece? We're dreaming here. How can we do this?
Well, I mean, if you yourself purchase voluntary carbon credits in voluntary markets, your risk are very, very low, because still, in case they're tokenized and not tokenized, you can still get them. I mean, they're all on the registry.
Yes.
And if they're on a registry in your name, which is normally the case, then most likely in any legal system, if you go and claim them, the judge would tell you they are yours.
Okay, so there is even today, in proximity, there is some fundamental security, like there is some safety, there are some regulations that would protect whoever buys these voluntary carbon credits.
Yeah. In general, all of the overall legal system, if it works more or less, then you will be able to get it. And also, I have seen from at least from a lot of the not only crypto but Web3 related projects that it is like natural to them. If it is registered in a registry in the name of the person, then those tokens are yours. Of course, not by the design, then most likely the system, those who keep the platform have access to them, but not you if you don't hold your keys yourself.
Yes, it's
but from the legal perspective, this should be enforceable. In general, it should be.
We talked about a lot about tokenized carbon credits now, but the reality is that refi is a holistic approach if it is done in the right way. Carbon credits are also a good metrics that can be verified by, what can I say, a simple indicator. But what about more complex systems? I know about a project that is planting trees and then they mint them as NFTs. But they really get disappointed when people just ask them or reduce them to the amount of trees, because in their holistic approach, they focus on biodiversity. They focus on actual fundamental reforestation. How can those people capture the value that they create and bring it to refi?
Well, this is a challenging question for me, because, well, I believe those projects which are being developed for carbon credits, they're being monitored, of course, by various kind of technologies. And then it is also, I believe, for the projects which grow trees but not for carbon credits, there is this missing link of economic incentive, because with the carbon credits market, voluntary carbon credits markets, on the one hand you do something good, but on the other hand you also can make some profits, revenues. And when you only grow trees without and even minting NFTs, okay, is a confirmation. It is good, but is it enough for those who purchase it?
What is enough? What would be enough? What would be something that can advance this space? If we are concerned about sustainability, and there are many of us, sometimes
Absolutely.
we lack the tools. So what can push the frontier with refi for sustainability in this case?
Well, I always think about like the easiest solutions, because we're all lazy, let's face it. Most of the people are,
Effective,
right?
effective, we're effective.
Yeah, and we all are bound by our habits and by our everyday tasks. And if something is built a way that it is extremely easy for us, let's say, to compensate using carbon credits, and that's why I see so many, for example, large protocols or large exchanges that compensation of their services, energy consumption, CO2 footprint, it is already in the price of their services. They do compensate it for consumers. Yes. Or in the case, for example, with flights, if you fly with Swiss Airlines, for example, Zalando, whatever, you have an option to always compensate your consumption. And this is the easiest for me, because I don't have to specifically go somewhere else to do it, let's say, outside of my daily habits and my daily routine. So this should be something easy, I believe, which you already use all of the exchanges. And that's why, for example, they use also the liquidity pools to give some additional incentives for people who both would like to do something good for the planet and to make it to earn some money on the way. There is nothing good. There is nothing bad with it per se, but you have to make it easy and have some other incentives, in my opinion, which would make people use it on a daily basis.
Yes. Janina, I believe that we had a good discussion here, but we mostly addressed limitations and challenges. You are obviously a knowledgeable expert. Can you maybe share some positive stories or experiences that you had consulting people about tokenization of on-chain credits, carbon credits?
Well, these are, of course, maybe I'm a little bit biased as a professional. I always deal with worst case scenarios, and I always address risks and assumptions and all of that things. In general, I've been following. In general, I've been happy to follow the development of the voluntary carbon credit markets to see that it is really, in general, it is so positive for me that it is kind of normal, at least within the European society, to sort of pay back to the countries which used to be colonies of European countries, or which are, let's say, where some of the production facilities are, that we pay them back for growing trees and for compensating our CO2 footprint. And it is becoming really like the new normal.
Yes.
I mean, it is not enough for to address all of the issues, all of the environmental issues. It is just one small thing. But even if all of the, let's assume most of the projects which are being developed, all of the trees are going to stay there for the next 20, 30 years, etc. And it is, and will be normal for like 90% of the population in the EU to compensate. It is an enormous number of trees which are going to be built, guys, and compensate its CO2, which is already good for the planet. Of course, it is a small part compared to all of the other things, but even doing this is already part of the solution.
It really makes me happy to hear you say this and that you have this optimism. And for me, the most important message that I take from this, from your statement just now, is that we have some people that are geographically spread out, and now they have the opportunity to enter this space of voluntary carbon markets, but also in refi in general, on more equal footings. They are the ones with the feet on the ground, where the rubber meets the road, and they can look now their counterparts somewhere else in the eye, because they meet on more equal terms. It's not perfect, but it's a great outlook. Laurent, what do you think? We lost you, but we were just talking.
Yeah,
we talked about negative
I'm
things,
sorry.
and now we talk about something positive, something inspirational, a good outlook. What do you see?
I learn my daily. Don't forget the reality. Connection doesn't work anymore. More in this. What I keep in mind, combination. It's not a unique. It's a combination at several levels. I think we should engage each part creation process, including regulatory sound. Trying. There is a lack of regulation. Yes, let's create things differently in an agile. It's also. I think we can level. It's time to. I'm really glad to see that some people are. We try through web to aggregate different of doing with the same long-term vision, aggregating purpose, and it creates the sustainability is also all about our behavior, on a daily basis, not only as a consumer, but as a human, and helping, because education is crucial, but not only learning how to use, why to use it, what is the purpose we put in this innovation, will better engage and we face a main problem. It's hype. Each new project replace other one and then the next one, but it's hard to talk about sustainability, escape this, you know.
We have 5 minutes left in this fireside chat, and maybe we close together now with a final statement, a final question, so to say, or something that I would like to hear from you or your opinion. And that is a very general question. What would be the best outturn for sustainability and regenerative finance in 5 years? And what do we have to do in the refi space to get there today in 5 years?
You want to start, Janina?
Well, I think that the market of carbon credits by 2030 should be worth not really hundreds, but at least 20, 30 billion, something like that. I'm really really looking forward to it, and this means that more projects will be developed on site, more carbon credits will be issued, and more communities, local communities on site will be supported for growing trees, and will have also better living standards, living conditions because of those projects.
What do we have to do today to get there in 2030, Janina? You're not getting away without it.
No. What we are doing now, what I'm doing together with the project that we support, they actually look constantly for additional financing to purchase forward carbons, mainly with large corporate clients.
Yes.
And buying forward carbons means that you already give money to reforestation projects.
Okay. So it's like to find a way to build carbon futures, so to say. That's what you're saying. That's what we have to do.
This is similar. Yeah.
I also want to say one thing to Janina here. You said the carbon market will be 30 billion in 2030.
Maybe this I'm wrong. I'm bad with numbers. No. Yeah.
This is one thing that I always say, because I am both in blockchain and in sustainability. And I always say, by God, I hope the price of carbon credits will be higher or will be more bullish than the price of Bitcoin, because that's really something that we need to see.
Yeah, we need to see it. I hope we will.
I hope. I pray every day like that. Laurent, what do you think? What is your biggest hope to see in 2030 or in 5 years, and how do we get there today? What do we have to do today to get there?
I see that my internet connection is still chaotic, so I hope you will hear me well. What I could say, I think in fact it's not only about it can be considered for some actors as a financial opportunity, and it can be a good thing because we need resource to build alternative. It's a reality in our world. It's also a way to an opportunity to try to imagine new business model guidance, and not only focus on profitability, but maybe we could introduce kind of impact index, how do you really contribute, and not just considering the temporality of your impact, because today I put the seed in the soil, the impact is mostly zero, okay? But in 20,
I think, Laurent, are you there?
You hear me?
Yes. Maybe one last sentence, and then we're going to wrap up.
Yeah, and considering also the impact with temporality. because today it can be just a seed, but in 20 years, you depending on the moment. Thanks a lot for this talk.
That's a beautiful statement and a beautiful image that we have a seed today, and if you want to grow a tree, that's how you start. So let's wrap this fireside chat up. A very special thanks to the organizer of the Web3 Stronger Together Summit, to Laurent, and also to Oilessa, who was in contact with me, but of course to all of the organizers of this amazing initiative. It was a pleasure to talk to you both, and let's stay in contact and change the world.
Thank you a lot. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.